All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Corey Niemeyer, and I will be hosting today's meetings for you all. We'll have Josh in just a little bit. I know you all want to hear from Josh, not me, so try to get through my piece fairly quickly. Remember in the Google navigation, down in the bottom right, you can use chat. If you put in chat questions or anything like that, I'll be sure to read those out to Josh later on. And then if you want to unmute or mute, it's down there on the bottom left. And then feel free to use those reactions. We do love those reactions, so keep them coming. Give us some cheers, applause, thumbs up, whatever you want. We love it. And I see, Stefan, do you have your hand up? You have a question, or were you playing with the reactions through your hand up? Steven? All right, we'll keep going. So yeah, feel free to unmute to ask those questions. And if you have any technical issues, shoot me an email or Patricia Nord or anyone else here, and we will try to figure it out for you and problem solve it. Since I'm hosting today, it might be a little bit harder for me to find those, so I'll do my best though. Not very confidence inspiring was that. All right, so today is September 18th. I don't know why that's the 17th. And this is the Public Sector's Change Practitioners webinar. So we are committed to bringing high quality information to our members, providing collaboration opportunities, and ensure those who are impacted by change are successful with change. Today's agenda, we had a couple of corny jokes from myself, a little bit of pre-banter. We are going to look through the PSDP board real quick, and then I'm going to turn it over to Josh, who's going to talk about how to navigate AI level change via the power of human energy. I'm super excited to hear from Josh, though. Let's get to it fairly quickly. And we will save some time for Q&A toward the end. All right, so the four folks on the board, we have Michelle, Elizabeth, Corey, myself. We have Doug, Patricia, as well as Jamie. So thank you all the board members for keeping this alive and thriving and bringing up these high quality speakers like Josh today. We will have PMI PDUs available afterwards. So right at the end, before the meeting concludes, I'll drop the link in there where you can submit the form to collect those PDUs. And we want to hear from you. So if you are interested in presenting, sharing any information, complete the survey, reach out to us, ask us questions, because we want to make this as valuable as we can for you all. So the only way we can do that is with your feedback. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Josh. Josh, take it away. I'm super excited to hear from you. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing and go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. It's so nice to be with you today. Let me get my screens set up here. Share window. I want to share this one. Let's see. All right. Do you all see a title slide? You can give me a thumbs up if you do. That would be great. Brilliant. Awesome. We are off to the races. Look at those thumbs up. Fabulous. Awesome. This is great. Welcome, everybody. Wow. It's such a pleasure to hang out with you this morning. I've got a ton of things that I think will add value to your lives. And so I want to jump right in here and get going. And I want to start with a little story. We're going to go back to the year 1783. So in the year 1783, there was a French scientist named Antoine Lavoisier. And he did something interesting. What Antoine did is he got a guinea pig. And we're going to call this guinea pig Simon. Simon had remarkably futuristic sunglasses for the 18th century. And he helped humans learn some really important things, including something I think is a little bit mind-blowing, actually, that we've been missing about the topic of change, which I think we all share kind of a fondness for. So Lavoisier, he was studying breathing, and he had a sense it might have something in common with burning. So we've got respiration and we've got combustion. On the surface, it might not seem like these things have a lot in common. But I think if we look a little deeper, we recognize that they are both state change kinds of things, right? We breathe in oxygen, our bodies change it to allow us to live. Burning, right, takes something in a physical form and fundamentally alters its state. Now, the actual scientists in the room today are completely rolling their eyes with how oversimplified I made that. But hopefully you get the point. These two things do have something in common. So what was Lavoisier's actual experiment, though? He convinced Simon to take an ice bath. Now, I admit I did not see this coming. So, it doesn't look exactly like this, but he stuck the guinea pig in a calorimeter, which is one of his inventions that measures heat. Now, the experiment was a success. And what it showed is that living organisms burn nutrients to produce energy, just like fire burns fuel. So Lavoisier was right? There is a connection here. Now, this idea of organisms burning nutrients to turn into energy, like that's pretty commonplace knowledge now. But before Simon, we didn't really actually understand this at all. Which I think is pretty fascinating. Okay, so now I have to tell you that story was like 99% true. And Antoine's research partner was actually a human named Simon, Pierre Simon, actually. And sadly, the guinea pig's name was lost to history. There are more important things we can learn from this guinea pig. What's his name, though? But before we go there, I'd really like to get to know you all just a little better, if you are willing. I've got 2 questions for you, and I'd love to ask you to put your answers in the chat window. So if everyone's familiar with the chat window, there's a little chat icon on the lower right. Tap that, and you can put your answers in here. So first question, if you are willing to answer, is what is the current change project you're working on? Or maybe it's the last one you did. If you're kind of between projects, that's okay. But what's kind of the latest thing that you've worked on that was a big change project? I'd love to know what kinds of things you are doing. Yeah, keep it high level, right? You don't need to share any details or who it's with or anything like that. Are you implementing a HR system or performance management? What kind of stuff are you working on? This really helps me kind of see what you all are dealing with these days. Organizational restructure, L&D. Outreach, reorgs. Yep. Okay. Data analysis. Okay. Digital access. Yeah. Accessibility stuff for sure. Okay. Awesome. Updating operating system. Mary, that's a really interesting. I need to hear more about that probably. Okay. Okay. This is great. Yeah. Please keep them coming. If there's a few more change programs, results management. Okay. Yeah, this is awesome. All right. Thank you for being willing to share that. That really helps me just kind of know what y'all are dealing with out there in the wild. Okay. Second question, if you're ready for it. The second question is a little deeper. It's why does this matter? Right? Why? So why is the leadership spending time, money, your energy, probably lots of other people's energy? Why do you think it matters? And if you're like, I don't really know, that's okay. But what do you think? Like, why does this change matter? Like, why are they spending money on this? Yeah, so there's like a futuristic kind of focus, right? We're trying to be ready for the future. Yeah, retaining people, absolutely. Very, yeah, we've got antiquated systems. God, yeah, we do. Isn't that the truth? Oh, yeah, you got to keep changing. That's right, Doug. Absolutely. Okay, great. Greater effect, avoiding burnout. Awesome. We're going to talk a lot about that a little bit today. Yeah, it's more better security. Okay, making things easier for the public. I love that. Yeah, man. Goodness, there's so many legacy systems out there, aren't there? We're just like drowning in legacy systems right now. User-friendly experiences. Yeah, inclusiveness. Awesome. These are fabulous whys, right? Like these are really, really good reasons to be doing these things, right? You all are doing really important work, right? You're serving people and you're helping people, and I think it's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. All right, we're going to jump back to this guy, to Simon, because he is still in the bath, and he's frankly very cold. So we need to talk about what else he can teach us about change. So at the core, this experiment, what it demonstrates is energy transfer, right? So Simon gets cold, his cells use energy, right? He burns nutrients, it heats him up, more carbon dioxide gets exhaled, his body changes from cold to warmer, right? All this is energy transfer stuff, and we can measure it. And this is what Lavoisier did. Right? He measured this thing and showed that there's this energy transfer occurring. But here's what I think we've been missing. It's kind of hiding in plain sight. To change the state of anything requires something. What is it? Energy. Right? To change the state of anything requires energy. And now these days we move energy around all the time. Right? But I think it's easy to forget about the connection between energy and change. Namely, that change and energy are inextricably linked. Change cannot occur without energy to precede the change. So let's, for example, let's look at this photo. Right, there's a lot of potential energy in this boulder, but it will not move until something energetically shifts. Right, the guy shoves it, the ground rumbles, the wind blows, something. Right now, I want to quickly call out that I just used the phrase energetic shift. And I don't know if anybody had kind of like a quick like mental pang of like, whoa, that phrase sounds kind of woo woo. It's okay if you did, right? I just want you to notice it if you're thinking that way, and we need to start reprogramming that narrative, because this is not any kind of woo woo stuff, right? This is physics, hardcore laws of the universe stuff, and an energetic shift, frankly, is the first law for thermodynamics. So let's take a moment though to talk more about energy, because this is a funny word. Because when I say it, what comes up for you can vary a lot. All right, so Corey, here's where we're going to get ready for a poll here. So I want you all to participate in this poll again, if you're willing. But the question is, when you hear this word, energy, what's your most dominant association? Like what typically comes to mind for you? All right, we're going to give you 5 options to choose from. 1, fossil fuels, oil, coal, BP, Chevron, that kind of stuff. 2, maybe crystals and healers. 3, renewables, wind, solar, maybe even climate change could go in that bucket. 4, photosynthesis, plants, right? That kind of energy. Or 5, human energy. What most typically comes up for you? So maybe not even just in this moment, but typically what comes up for you?
Right. The voting system is open in the bottom right. If you click on the square triangle circle, you can vote there in the poll. See a lot of folks also threw it into the chat too, which is totally fine.
Yeah, better if you can go to the poll thing, because then we can actually see how they're collecting. Because I can't add up these numbers that fast in my head. So if you can go to activities, go to polls, we take a look there. That would be great. So yeah, again, asking for kind of the typical. What do you think typically comes up for you if you hear this word out in the wild? So not necessarily today, but like out there in the world. Caffeine, nice, Wendy. Chocolate. I'm gonna need to add an option. I think that's a fair point. All right. So yeah, thank you for voting. Please keep voting if you want to. But this is just like to get a little bit of awareness, right? There's no right or wrong to this. There's no bad or good. It's just notice. Right? Like what comes up for you with this word? There's a lot of different associations for this word. And I'm very pleased to see so many people are thinking about human energy. That makes me happy. So moving forward, what I want to do is I want to encourage you to really think about the word energy whenever you can in the physics sense. So in physics, energy is defined as the capacity to do work. And I think this definition seems really, really relevant to our work, right? Like this is a really big deal. It's like in this picture, right? Solar panels take energy from the sun, windmills take energy from the wind, and we capture that and store it so it can do work for us later. And energy is, when you think about it, energy is kind of everything, right? Like how long does your life work when the power goes out? Probably not very long, right? Your life doesn't function the way you want it to for very long when the power goes out, right? And so this is really true across lots of things. Energy is both the catalyst and the sustainer of change in the natural world. Whether we're talking about cellular function, we're talking about ecosystems, we're talking about global climate, energy is the underlying force that both drives transformation and maintains balance. Okay? Without energy, our systems, whether it's biological, ecological, or organizational, they cannot initiate change nor sustain change without energy, period. So let me put this on one more way. Without energy, change cannot exist. And I think this is the discussion that's been missing. It's kind of hiding in plain sight. So what's the energy that powers our organizations? So many of you voted for this, right? Human energy. This is what powers our organizations. And I would argue that human energy is the single most important part of any change that you're trying to do. How can I say that? Well, because literally nothing happens without it. Right? The only reason any change happens ever is because a human had the energy to start it or to keep it going. That's kind of it. So, but even if you agree with me that this is logical and makes sense, when was the last time you had a discussion in your change project about human energy? And is that happening? So I've been studying human energy for the last 15 years. And one of the things I know about it is that most of us don't really understand it at all. Most of us, except in one way. Most of us understand human energy in the deficit of it. Right? We definitely understand having a lack of energy, right? When you're sick, what do you want more of? Energy. When you're tired or you got COVID, what do you need? You need energy, right? That's all you want. We really only understand energy in the context of knowing what it feels like to not have it. In our organizations, it's sadly largely the same. We only talk about it when it's not there, right? So who's had a discussion at work about burnout? Right? Lack of energy. Yep, exactly. Most of us have probably had a discussion about burnout. And we know change projects, right? They can create some burnout, right? We also know that good change outcomes can't really be created with a burned out workforce. So we kind of understand that. So I'm guessing now some of you are thinking, okay, maybe we have addressed human energy in our change efforts in the frame of burnout. And that's okay, right? That's a great start. But there is a problem with that. Namely, reducing pathology is not what creates excellence, right? So burnout reduction campaigns are important, right? Don't stop doing that. But just doing that is a little like thinking a focus on weaknesses will somehow create greatness. Right? That doesn't work. So let me tell you another quick story. This one's a little more recent than the last one. So we're going to fast forward into the 1950s in Nebraska. And so in the 1950s in Nebraska, there's a group of students. And there's also a group of researchers. So these are like college freshmen. And so there's a group of researchers that were charged by the administration to try to help improve the reading speed of the students, right? Ostensibly, that would help them be better students. That's great. So the researchers, of course, put the students through a baseline test, right? To see, like, where are we starting here? Or where are the students starting? So they're starting with these numbers that you see on the screen. So the below average readers are starting at 90 words per minute, reading speed and comprehension. Above average readers are at 350, right? So you've got your polls here, okay? Now the researchers devised a speed reading course, put everybody through the same course, right? Everybody goes through the same training, okay? I'll tell you what happened to the first group. The students that started at 90 words per minute went to 150. And here, now it's time for our next poll, okay? What do you think happened to the second group, right? What do you think the above average readers that started at 350, what do you think happened to them? All right, there's not that many options. I'm going to give you three options, right? You can vote that they either got better, they stayed the same, or they got worse. What do you think happened? All right, I'm looking at these votes coming in. It's intense. This is great. Got better, stayed the same, or got worse. They started at 350. All right, well, we get a few more votes in here. Maybe pull them down because the reading strategy changed. Interesting theory, Steve. Absolutely. I see where you're coming from. Okay. So the winner of the poll is definitely got worse. Oh, stayed the same. Just pulled. Oh, could be stayed. Okay, so we've got a lot of folks in the stayed the same or got worse category. All right, all right. Who wants to know what actually happened here? Okay, you ready? All right. The group that started at the 350 went to 2,900. They didn't get a little better. They didn't get, tiny bit better. They didn't get right. They got exponentially better. The researchers were blown away. They didn't see this coming. They did not predict this at all either. What in the heck is happening here? So what is happening is that this was the start of our understanding that fixing deficiencies will never lead to excellence. Right? The only way you get excellence, right? The only way you get scores like 2,900 is when you start with strength. Right? You start with strengths and then you get exponentially better. Strengths are a multiplier. And that's what we learned from this reading story here. And so this is what we've got to do when we're thinking about treating something like burnout, right? We need to do more than just treat burnout, right? That's kind of like trying to fix weaknesses. What we really need to do is increase our literacy, our understanding about positive human energy, right? And we need to capitalize on strengths. If you want excellence, you have to optimize for strengths. You will never get amazing results by treating deficiencies. Treating burnout alone is a little like fixing a hole in your boat. Like, should you do that? Yeah, you should, right? That's a good idea, but it's not what's going to win you the race, right? It's kind of table stakes to have a boat that doesn't have holes, right? To win, what you need is people at their best. Okay, so let's talk about that. All right. The next activity we're going to do back in the chat window. Okay. So here's the question I want you to ponder. And I really want you to take a moment to ponder this. Okay. The question is, when was the last time you were at your best at work? Like, close your eyes if you're comfortable. Like, really try to put yourself back in that moment of, wow, I was at my best when I was doing that thing, when I was giving that presentation. I was, right? So think about that. You don't need to put the example in the chat window. It's okay if you are. But what I want in the chat window is I want words that you would use to describe how you felt. Right? So we're looking for 3 words that describe how you felt in that moment. So really put yourself back in there and feel it. What are 3 words that describe how you are feeling when you are at your best at work? Yeah, now we're seeing it. Awesome. Engaged, connected, flow, supported, creative. Productive, purposeful. Yes. This is just one of my favorite exercises because these words are just always so fabulous. Accomplished, content. How lovely is that? Motivated, relaxed, appreciated, energized. Yeah, I'm collaborative. Yeah, keep it coming. This is awesome. This is awesome. I could read these words all day. Okay. So here are some of our words. Yeah, please take a moment to read through the words from your colleagues here, because it's just great reading, right? Like this is awesome. Okay. But now the next piece here is I've got some reflection questions based on this activity that we just did together. Okay. So here are some of the questions I'd like us to now ponder. First of all, when was the last time you were asked this question about when you were at your best at work? I've asked this question of thousands of people. Yeah, never is a very common answer. My last interview is probably the second common. Yeah. We don't ask this question at work. It's pretty interesting. Okay, next question. Yeah, strength assessment, totally, Travis, totally. Yep. You get it sometimes there. Yeah, that's good. Okay. So next question for you to ponder. How many of these words that you saw in the chat window would you say relate to energy in some fashion? A lot of them to me are kind of like energetically emotional kinds of words, right? Yeah, I think, yeah, most, maybe all. Yeah, they're all kind of related to this idea of energy. Okay, next question. Now, presumably, you create the most value when you're at your best, right? You bring, like when you're in that state, right, that you just described, you're bringing your best ideas, right? You're the most collaborative. You're like, when you're in that headspace, you're creating more value for your organization, for your team, for your leadership, right? Like for your clients, you're creating a lot of value, right? So beneficial there. Okay. I would also think that you're at your most resilient, that you can be open to and absorb more change, right? Like you have more resiliency, you have more kind of bounce back ability when your tank is full, right? When you feel like you're at your best and your tank is full, right? You can do that better. You've got more capacity, more resources. So if being in this state that you just described produces your best quality work and helps us change more effectively, why do our change projects not pay more attention to this? Do you think it's possible that your change plan, whatever it may be, could benefit from incorporating a human energy strategy? Hopefully by now it's seeming a little self-evident that this could help. But if I could bring more energy to my humans, that would help my change. That would change whatever I'm trying to change. This could help. Okay, so far I think what we've established a couple things. You all are working on really important things. You're doing really good work. It's hard. You're probably not paid half of what you should be getting paid, but you're doing really hard work, good work anyway. Thank you. Second thing I think we've established: change doesn't happen without human energy. It can't. It's biologically, physically impossible, right? Change does not occur without energy. The third thing I think we've established, hopefully, is that a human energy strategy could boost the success of whatever you're trying to do, right? You all are doing a lot of different stuff, but whatever you're trying to do, if it involves change, more energy is going to help you. Okay. So now I want to get into the what the heck do I do with this part of our time. And we'll get into I'm going to try to get through the content here, and then we'll get into some Q&A stuff so we can really dig in. So please, if you're having questions, either put them in the chat window. Corey can collect them. We'll talk about those in just a moment. Okay. But let me give you some tools. Does anybody want some tools? Okay. Here we go. I've got some free resources for first present of the day. First present of the day is free resources. You can scan this with your phone, or my colleague Sam will put in the chat window this link. So just go to my website /PSCP, Public Sector Change Practitioners. Yeah, thank you, Sam. You can click that link. You fill out a super quick form, and then it'll take you to the resources page. Okay, on the resources page, if you want to do this, right? You don't have to, but it can help you as we're kind of going through some of these resources, and I'd love for you to have these free things. One of the things that I would recommend you download is the Human Energy Canvas. It's the first thing you'll see on the resources page. So if you download that, then you can download a bunch of worksheets. You can do them separately, or you can download them all at once if you want to. But really look at that canvas. Download that canvas, and we can look at that PDF together. I think that will really help you. What we're going to do is go through what are the ingredients of a human energy strategy, right? So if you want to overlay a human energy strategy onto whatever change you're doing, right? I think this will work for any project. All of your projects are viable for this. So you want to overlay a human energy strategy. What does that mean? What do you do? Okay. So there are two parts to a human energy strategy. There's me and there's we. And once you download the canvas, you'll see that there's two columns. On the left, you'll see me. On the right, you'll see we. Okay. And there's three pieces to each strategy, but let me kind of go through what I mean by me and we. So on the me side of these strategies, what we're going to do there, we're going to try to increase the fluency of people's individual energizers, right? We have to help people know what energizes them, and then we have to help them do more of that. Okay. We also have to decrease people's stress a little bit, right? Change is stressful. Work is stressful. Life is freaking stressful, right? How do we decrease our stress? And then the other thing we need to do is kind of start to increase our ability to work well, to play nicely with others, right? And so we've got a tool in here that I say 10x is your interpersonal effectiveness. This is what it's done for me. And it's a concept called overdrive. We'll talk about that in a second. All right, so that's the me side. On the we side, these tasks are things we need to do a few things. This is the collective part, right? So you've got the individual and you've got the collective, right? The me and the we. And you have to do both. You really have to do both if you want a complete human energy strategy. On the we side, this is how we play together, how we work together. So we're going to do a couple things here. One, we're going to help people be more productive. Right? How do you show up in a more productive way? We're going to help each other get into flow, because what happens is at work, the flow, like being in a flow state, like being in your zone, which is kind of what I'd probably describe, like you're at your best, like the words that you said a few minutes ago. You were probably kind of like in your zone. You might have been in a flow state when in that moment that you were thinking of, right? But at work, flow is usually a team sport where we can help each other get in it and stay in it. And so this is a we activity as well. And then, of course, we need to eliminate these freaking life-sucking things, right? There's all projects have them. All organizations have these things. They suck the life out of everybody. And you've got to figure out how to get rid of those. Okay. So I'm going to go through these in a little more detail. This is all going to be, so disclaimer, yeah, meetings, right? This is all going to be pretty high level. Okay. Just because we don't have a ton of time, and I want to get to questions so we can actually dig into stuff that you want to know more about. But let me give you all of this at a high level so you can use these tools in your change projects if you want to do that. All right. So what you'll see on the me side, or me on we, you'll see 3 different things. You'll see an activity, you'll see a practice, and you'll see a go deeper exercise. Okay. And you'll find this for each one of those, right, on the me side and the we side. All right. So let me just go through all the 3 things that are on the me side. So the activity, now I would recommend starting with the activities on both sides of the canvas. This is a great place to start. They're completely money free. Right? They won't cost you, they will cost you time, right? And they will cost you intentionality and thoughtfulness, but they don't cost you money. You can actually try these practices and go deeper things as well. Those do work better with an assessment that we use, which I can tell you more about if you want to hear it. But you can go pretty far on these things without having to spend any money. So I'm going to try to explain these things. So the first thing I want you to try on the me side is something we call an energy journal. This really is step 1. You need to identify the activities at work that inherently recharge your personal battery. So like we talked about before, you're probably pretty aware of all the stuff that sucks the freaking life out of you at work. Right? That stuff's easy, right? You could catalog that pretty easily. You can write a big long list probably pretty quickly. What you maybe can't do as quickly is I say, oh, that particular activity, that lights me up when I do it. I love doing that activity. I love, so the love part of this is a little bit harder than the loathe part. So keeping energy journal, it's a worksheet you print out, you can keep track. And I would say do this for a couple weeks, just keep track. As you go throughout your day, note the things that bring you energy and note the things that drain your energy. And you're going to be looking for patterns. And you do this for a couple weeks and you'll see some patterns. And you should do this with anybody that you possibly can, right? If you're leading a team, do this with them, right? Like encourage them to do this. This becomes really great stuff to talk about because you start to put a different frame on the work, right? It's not just about like, I'm good at it and I can do it and I can power through and suck it up and make it happen. It's, okay, what things bring me energy? Because what I'm working on is really hard and I need energy to do the hard. All right. So energy journal, absolutely step number 1 that we recommend. The second thing you want to do on the me side is understand stress triggers. All right. So we need to reduce stress. Energy can sometimes show up as pressure that doesn't feel good, right? We call that stress. The more we understand what triggers that stressful state for us, the more constructively we can deal with it. So one of the best ways to reduce stress is to understand what's triggering it for you. And the more you understand what brings you energy and what drains you, the more you can connect that to your stress triggers. So you'll see a worksheet for this too. And this one does work a little better with the assessment. But you can explore this, right? Get started. Start to explore, okay, if I'm energized by strategy, what kinds of things are going to make me stressed out? Right? So for example, if I'm energized by details and I don't get enough details, you know what that does to me? It makes me feel stressed out, right? So it's like so this is the other way to think about your energizers. If something really energizes you and you're not getting it, that's going to make you stressed. So then the more you understand this about yourself, the more effective you can show up. So that's another really great practice. This is something to practice. This is very much a practice. Okay. And then for the go deeper activity on the me side, this is something we call balance overdrive. So this is that 10x your personal effectiveness thing. Overdrive is essentially too much of a good thing, right? When I get energized by, let's say I'm energized by details, right? If I need too many details, right, and I'm driving everybody crazy with my need for details, right? Like I'm sure you've never seen that happen from anyone. You probably have, right? Like that's overdrive. It's too much of a good thing, right? Normally, Josh, we like your attention to details, but man, it's an overdrive right now, and it's driving everybody nuts. So you got to learn how to balance that, and that's an energetic thing too. So that's a go deeper kind of practice. But I got to that one, it has made me so much more interpersonally effective. It's amazing. All right, so those are the three on the me side. Let's talk about the we side. 3 options over there. The first one, right, that I'd really recommend, like if you don't do anything else, do the 2 activities when you go back to your groups and go back to your work. Now, the activity on the we side that I'd encourage you to do here is a version of what we did earlier, right? The you at your best, right? Have this conversation with your people that you work with most. Take them out to coffee, right? Get on Zoom, get on Teams, whatever. Like ask them this question. Hey, when are you at your best? There's a worksheet here you can write, take down notes for the people you work with. Most of you probably work with, I don't know, 5 to 10 people most, right? You probably work with lots of people, but like there's probably 5 to 10 that you work with a lot. Do this with them. Get a sense of, hey, when are you at your best? Hey, this is a really fun conversation, as you experienced a few moments ago. But it's just fun to hear about, okay, oh yeah, that when you were doing that thing, that lit you up and made you feel amazing. Right, like it's fun to hear those stories from our colleagues. We don't talk about it enough. So this is powerful. So over the next few weeks, really would encourage you, challenge you to sit down with the folks that you work with most and do this activity with them. All right, the practice on the we side is something we call an energized colleague. And this is kind of building on this. What we provided in the worksheets is kind of like a print out and then cut out little cards. And so, because what's great, that it's always great to give people kudos for things, but what's even better is feeling recognized for something that you're energized by, because it feels so authentic, right? It's like you actually see me when you see me for my energizers and the things that I love and the things that I feel like I'm at my best. If you recognize those things about me, man, that's just like an extra level of kudos. It's powerful. So you can do that, and that's a practice, recognizing these things in our colleagues. And then the go deeper practice here is stop the frickin' drainers. Right? This is a slightly more advanced technique, right? It's a go deeper practice. It requires a lot of psychological safety. It requires knowledge of energizers of your teammates. This is probably ideally presented in a workshop setting, but I wanted you to have this tool. Right? There are things you can do. You don't have to just put up with these energy vampires in your company, right? Like we all have them, but you can totally stake them. Like you can get rid of this crap. You can stop these drainers, and here's a process for how to start doing that. So those are the tools. I know that was super, super high level. Let's go to Q&A here. Corey, I don't know if you've got some that are teed up and I can answer, or what are we looking at?
I saw Doug put one in. Doug, do you want to verbalize yours, or I can read it out too? But I can put you on the spot, buddy.
Sure. Yeah, I'll see if my short-term memories actually can be healed up here. I think what you had emphasized, Josh, was to include in change management strategy is a team energy management strategy. And I wasn't trying to be glib or snarky, but what comes off the top, if you will, because sometimes change management strategies are pretty dense, pretty packed, and and you could say, well, nothing comes off. You just need to get clever. But I wonder if there's a way to do some trade-offs. Maybe it's situational as far as how you would integrate that new layer. So thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question, Doug. And it is really hard, right? Because these things are already packed. Nobody has time to do anything else ever, right? Nobody can squeeze anything else into their agendas. So what we would recommend is make these things as small as you possibly can, right? Try to try to make them fit inside really small moments, and that's something that we've seen be successful. So if you can squeeze these things into like a huddle, right? So let's say you've got a team meeting that's standing. You could take a few minutes off the top of that meeting to talk about some of this stuff, right? So let's say you've got a half hour, an hour booked. That's a standing meeting. Slice 5 to 10 minutes off the front of that and have some conversation, like some moment to kind of be human together, talk about energizers. Hey, what's energizing you? What's draining you? Right? Like get into some of this stuff. Don't try to set up another meeting whenever possible. If you can fit in workshops and stuff, right, that can be effective. But to your point, it could be hard to squeeze in sometimes. So I really like the strategy of slicing off the front of a standing meeting and then doing it regularly. I think small things practiced consistently are way more powerful than one thing practice, right? Like I went to the gym once last year, right, and look how fit I am. That's not really how this works anyway. So like do small things and just do them more regularly. Awesome question. This is hard though. Let's recognize that the work you guys are doing is hard. What else is coming up for y'all?
All right. Nothing else in the chat. Anyone want to unmute and ask Josh a question or throw it in the chat and I'll verbalize it? Yeah, Patricia.
Yeah, Josh, when you're talking, it brings to mind the kind of reinforcement angle of celebrating successes. And maybe you could talk more about how to incorporate that along the change path using your methodology here.
Yeah, awesome, Patricia. That's fabulous. I think what you want to do is like a huge part of this is just kind of starting to recognize people for what brings them life and energy. Right. So kind of like that's kind of the prerequisite here, right? You've got to have some baseline knowledge of, okay, this is what energizes me and this is what energizes my team. Right. And that's why we like this assessment that we use, because it kind of helps people gives them some handles around that to say, okay, no, I know, like I don't just have to guess, but I can say these specific things bring me energy and these specific things kind of suck it out. And that's just really helpful to then share with the team and to say, okay, and then now we've got a bit of language, a bit of a common language to be able to reference back to. And I think that's magical. So as much as you can, I would preload this with some common language. Is right, like every kind of successful community has a common language. Right? Like we need to be able to talk to each other. And so I would say installing some common language would really help with that. What else is
All
coming
right.
up
What
for
else
you?
we have for Josh? So Wendy put into the chat, inclusion from the beginning is helpful, or just awareness of the changes coming itself. All right. Final chance for any questions. Josh, any final words of wisdom for our colleagues here? Oh, Doug has another question.
Sure.
Yeah, you asked twice, Corey, so you know me, I always blab in, especially with first, extremely talented presentation and learning transfer. Mr. Josh is really impressive. So you've crafted that obviously over a long time to get such high value in a short period of time. Is there anything that comes up with your clients and customers when you talk about perhaps, and this may not, is there a business case for this that that organizations can consider, because part of this is innately how you feel. I mean, this has been a strong feeling, given that 60 people are fully engaged on this. Obviously, it resonates, but then taking it forward to say, well, okay, how can we invest in this to then have a return on investment for our people? And it's that come up in conversation, and hopefully that's a fair question. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your kind comments, Doug. Appreciate that. And yeah, of course, right. It absolutely comes up. And I think this is another one of those kind of like hiding in plain sight things, right? Because we all have seen the statistics, right? The McKinsey, whatever, 70% of changes, right, don't stick, right? That kind of, right. We all know that. Like, so the question from my perspective is, how do we beat that? Right? Like, if we're right, we don't actually have to even execute perfectly. We just have to get better than a 30% kind of return on this, right? Like, and so you can kind of like logic your way into this, right? If people are open to that, to say, okay, like kind of like what I told, like the process we went through today, right? Like, is there any possible way that when you are not at your best, you don't have more the internal capacity and resources for change? Right? It just doesn't, it just like the logic follows here. Like, you are absolutely like, and you could tie it to burnout, right? Like, cause I do think there's an inherent understanding today that if people are burned out, right, your change is not, it's less likely to succeed. Right. So then you could also point to productivity stuff. So here would be the other statistics stuff that I would get into. Right. So if you look at things like flow states, so this is a pretty interesting one. This is actually McKinsey also, is they did a study with leaders years ago, and they said, how much more productive are you when you're in a flow state? And the most common answer was 5 times. So we get 5 times more productivity out of people when they're in the zone, right? When they're energized and focused and in flow, 5 times more productivity. And so there's all this kind of like latent potential energy, right, hiding in people that we're just not getting out. And so, but yeah, the financial one is, have there been actual like studies, right, to like kind of connect these things, right? That gets a little dicey, because we don't really, people aren't kind of investing in that kind of thing. But I think there's plenty of ways to logic your way into this and say, hey, there's no way that this won't help your change. But I do understand the challenge of the financial side of this as well. In terms of implementations, Krista, the most success that we had was with these kind of little micro interventions. So we actually we had an app for a time, and inside the app we gave people micro practices around all of these things that you're seeing, and we saw a lot of success. Right, we saw burnout reduction even in 90 days, even with frontline healthcare teams, even during the pandemic, right? So it's just like, so you can get ROI stuff. So again, kind of back to your point too, Doug, like there's ROI here. Right? If you measure, okay, if you do these practices and measure the level of burnout, it's very measurable. And I could send you case studies, right? So if that serves any of you, right, I could definitely share our data, right, that we collected over the last 5 years. But that's what I would say is, in terms of successful implementations, it is these things of like slicing off the first parts of meetings for huddles, being human together, giving people a common language. It's stuff we've already talked about. That's exactly what made these implementations successful. I'm going to see if I can switch this. Someone asked, so Lucy, you're asking about what makes me feel energetic. I'll show you this. So here, I keep talking about this assessment here. I'll just show you. Can you guys see a wheel? Okay. So this is my wheel. So this is what makes me feel energized. This is an instrument called Strength Scope. I don't know if any of y'all have heard of it. It's my favorite instrument. It's terribly named. It doesn't measure strengths in any way that you think about strengths. It measures energy. So these big long purple bars are what energizes Josh. So self-confidence, enthusiasm, strategic mindedness, details was true. Creativity. initiative leading. And then what drains Josh, right, is like common sense. And so that's a funny one. But what it really means is, doing the same thing the way it's always been done does not energize me. Right. I don't want to do it in the common way. That's always, I want to kind of invent something new, which you can see with the creativity and the initiative. And then efficiency. This is about creating processes. Resilience up here. This is about kind of like the taking the hardest path. Some people really are energized by taking the hardest path. That sucks the life out of me. So there's a few of mine. And let me just share a couple other quick thoughts with you before our time is done today. Let me go back to this. Okay. All right. I think I finally figured out how to share things on Google Meet. That's great. Okay. So I do have one more super special. So present number 2 for all of you today. I've got one more present for you. We know that y'all are public servants. We know y'all probably don't have huge budgets or any budgets for consultants or advisors. So what we wanted to do is offer y'all a free hour of thought partnership with me on Zoom for the people who are in this room today. So anybody who's attending this session, if you would like to do that, you get a full hour with me, or we could do 2 30-minute sessions, whatever fits you better. We just appreciate the hard work you all do so very much. This is our small way of giving back. We can talk about whatever you want. We can talk about guinea pigs, or no, I'm just kidding. We really can. We can talk about whatever you want. So if you're interested, you can ping my colleague Sam. So Sam is in the room. Sam will put a note in the chat window along with her email. But put a note in the chat window, or just email Sam, and we'll hook you up with the time. And I'd love to talk to any of you, all of you. I hope we get to talk more. So quick recap. Here's what I think we learned today. I hope that we learned today a few things. I think Simon, the guinea pig, taught us that change can't exist without an energy transfer. I think hopefully we learned that the energy that matters at work is human energy. I think we now understand that we need to get people in their best and most energized state to ensure good change outcomes. And you gained a bunch of practical tools that you can take back to your change projects. You can try out, you can experiment with, you can do your own experiments, and hopefully make your change projects even more energizing. That's it for me, my friends. I hope you've had as much fun as I had with you all today. I'm so grateful. Thank you, Corey. Thank you, Jamie. And yeah, we've got a few minutes here. If there's other questions, we can absolutely talk. But just thank you all for hanging out so much. We got a hand raised. Ann, what's up, Ann?
Hi, Josh. Thank you so much for an amazing presentation. Very energizing. One question I have in terms of burnout teams, you talked about measuring burnout. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah.
And then also, when you do have burnout teams, having a team adding this on to the team seems like even more, like burn out the team even more, even though it's really important. So what are some of your special considerations in doing an exercise like this with a burnt out team?
Yeah. So in terms of measurements, what we ended up doing, there's some great measurements. So Brian Sexton at Duke did a lot of great work on burnout, and he made some of his questions publicly available that we borrowed his question. So if you want, Ann, you don't even have to go look it up. Just send Sam an email. We'll give you the questions that we used to measure this. They're scientifically they were validated by Dr. Sexton. So I would use those. And then in terms of like doing this, with a team that's already feeling the crispiness of burnout, it is a challenge, right? Like there is no question, like you are absolutely right. Like it is really hard. The one thing I can say is that if you create this kind of a venue where people get to talk about what energizes them and makes them feel alive, it doesn't feel like another thing to do. It feels life-giving and it feels replenishing. Right? And this is why it worked even with frontline healthcare teams during the pandemic, right? If you create the right venue, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time, right? If you can create the right venue for this, and yeah, I think that's the magic. I think that's the magic, right? Because doing like the actual conversation itself becomes energizing. It becomes replenishing. It becomes recharging, and it gives people a little bit of a respite from the craziness. And it is hard, right? Because it's like, and that's why I say put it at the beginning of another meeting that's already existing, right? So like you got to do whatever you can to make this feel like it's not another thing to do, because nobody freaking has, it's time to do another, right? Like you can't do that. So do whatever you can to avoid that, right? Make it a little tiny part of something that you've already got planned. And I think what you'll find is people will say, oh, that's my favorite part of the meeting, right? When we got to be human together and talk about what energizes us.
Is there an optimal number of size team that you should be doing this with?
Yeah, probably. We would say it's probably with, and I kind of recommended it earlier, is like when I said you do this with the people you work with most. That's what we'd recommend, right? Most people have a team of 5 to 15 that they work with most. And if you can get that group together, right, if they're having a standing meeting, that is the perfect venue for this kind of work. It's because what you want to do is you want to deepen those relational bonds with the people that you see them, right? You probably, those people, those 5 to 15 people, you probably see those people more than you do your family, your kids, your part, right? Like those people. So you can need to deepen those relational connections and understand each other's energizers. That's the magic.
Thank you.
Great question. Anything else, my friends? All right. Corey, I think you're muted if you need to do a little closer here, my friend.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. Thank you so much for your time and that gift of your future time as well. It's all, a lot of folks are interested in talking to you, so I truly do appreciate that, and I'm glad to get to know you as well. So I appreciate that, Josh. All right, so before you go, remember to fill out that survey if you want those PMI PDUs. I pinned it into the chat there. I also pinned some of Josh's contact information, so if you're looking through it, and all those chats should be pinned at the top for you to be able to get a hold of him. This recording will be posted on our website within the next couple of days, as well as all the other recordings. So go there and check it out. If you want to rewatch anything, it's always good to go back and re-review those resources. And the LinkedIn group is also pinned in the chat, so feel free to go in there and start a discussion as well. Our YouTube channel is also available if you want to subscribe. This is where we'll post the video, but honestly, it's easier to go and find it on the website. That's at least how I go and find them. And thank you everyone for joining. And again, thank you so much, Josh, for your time and that gift of your future time as well. And folks, our next webinar will be on October 9th at 10 a.m. And I hope to see you all there. So without further ado, great webinar. And thank you again, Josh. That was fantastic.